So let's not get destructive with destructive moisture meters. Hi, Chuck Boutall here, Director of Education with the Restoration Technical Institute, and we're here with another When It Comes Down to It. Tom Laurenzi, CEO of Delmorse, is here, and we're talking about destructive moisture meters. They're basically invasive or our pin-type moisture meters that work off of conductance in the materials. So it's an electrical current passage between the two pins, and what we understand is as moisture moves into the material, of course, the material is getting wetter, and since water is more conductive than the air it's displacing, the meter then reads wetter. So Tom, is basically that how it works?
That's right, Chuck. That's how they work. There is a direct relationship between the moisture content and the conductivity of these hygroscopic materials. Any material that absorbs and gives off moisture will find application with a pin type or a conductivity type moisture meter. So wood and drywall are great materials that respond well to meter readings. So the meter reads the conductivity between the two pins as you push them into the material. The higher the moisture level, the higher the conductivity, so the reading will be elevated. Right. Lower readings have less conductivity or higher resistance, right, and so the reading will be lower. When using non-insulated pins, it's important to keep in mind that you're going to read the highest moisture content that
the most conductive point, basically.
That's right. Okay. So if the pins are about 5/16 of an inch, if you push them in, say 1/8 of an inch, and you have a reading that's high, and then push them to their full penetration, that highest reading will remain on the display because you're making more and more contact with a non-insulated metal probe.
Gotcha. That's the great thing about insulated probes. Remember, if you insulated probes, just the tips are exposed, so you can always measure at the tips there. Now, one of the other big things about the pin-type moisture meters or our destructive moisture testing is a lot of people have some concerns about the use of them on different materials. And one of the biggest things that I know a lot of people don't do is they don't species correct across wood for their meters. I mean, in the restoration industry, we're kind of looking for trending where we start at an elevated moisture content and come down. But truly, there's a pretty good size difference between something like maple flooring, 2x4 studs, plywood, and of course, some type of either engineered or other type of flooring systems that are out there, right, Tom?
Right, that's right. So it's important to keep in mind that the meters are calibrated for wood, pretty much for Douglas fir, which is the USDA reference species. All Delmhorst meters, in fact, are calibrated based on that reference Douglas fir. But it's also known that each species reads differently at the same level of moisture content because each species has different physical and chemical characteristics that cause the meter to respond differently. So if you're looking for best accuracy, Chuck, we recommend that you make a species correction, and you can either do that through the function that's built into the meter, or most meters should come with a species correction chart, or you can find it online to see what that difference would be. Again, as you said, in restoration, we're really looking for trending, and that's probably why most techs don't really pay a lot of attention to some of these corrections, but it's important to know that the corrections are in the meter. Then it's up to you as the tech to determine just how accurate you want to be.
Need to be.
So we have the species correction, we have the temperature correction, and we have corrections for pins, and that would be insulated versus non-insulated pins. All these contribute to the accuracy of the meter reading, and again, whether you take advantage of them or not, it really depends on your application.
Right. Now, speaking of the pins, because we're going to get into temperature correction in just a second, but the pins, so when you're using like the alligator tip attachments and those things, it's important to keep the pins the same space as it would be on the meter because the pins are further apart. Wouldn't that vary the conductivity reading a little bit?
It does, but surprisingly, the variation is not that great.
Excellent. So, that's good to know.
You know, people ask us all the time, what is the distance between these two pins? And of course, we'll share that information because some folks feel they need to have it. But in testing that we've done, it's not all that precise.
Gotcha.
So a difference from how we have our pins spaced is not all that critical.
Not that critical. Well, that's good to know because sometimes we're doing a little bit of variation on the theme, and that really is nice.
I would say, though, that if you are putting nails or screws into material in various places, make that separation the same so that you have uniform testing throughout.
Good point. So if you're going to basically make it 1.5 inches here, make it an inch and a half everywhere. Right.
That's right.
All right. Excellent. And then the last one is actually temperature correction. So how does the temperature actually change the conductivity or sensitivity of the meter that way?
So after the moisture content itself, temperature is the main factor that affects the accuracy of the meter reading. And there's a correction, and the rule of thumb for that correction is basically that for every 20 degrees less than 70, you would add a point to your reading. For every 20 degrees greater than 70, you would subtract a point from your reading. Now, these corrections are a little bit more precise than that. Again, they're supplied in charts, or most of the new meters today have that temperature correction programmed into the meter. So you basically set your meter's temperature correction to the temperature of the material that you're testing, and the reading will be corrected for it. So the reference temperature is 70 degrees. The higher the temperature, the more conductive the wood becomes.
Gotcha.
So you need to
compensate for that.
You're right. So you subtract from the reading.
Right.
Okay. So that's that. So
pretty interesting because it's some of the bigger things out there. And like I said, in the world of restoration, when it really comes down to it, in the world of restoration, we basically are looking for trending. But remember, when you move into flooring inspection or building inspection or any of the other ones where we might be talking about defending us on numbers in courtroom or getting into that type of battle, we need to be very specific, and you have to make these decisions. But even still, as Tom recommends, and I do too, even for you restorers out there in the field, start thinking about this because we want the most accurate readings we can make our decisions upon, because if we got bad readings, we could be making the right decision with a wrong outcome because we started with bad data. And bad data is not something you want. So always remember, the spacing of the pins is not as critical as many of us have thought, but the temperature correction and species correction can be significant. So always want to make sure we do that. Thanks to C&R Magazine for distribution of the series. Thank you for learning with rtilearning.com. And thanks to Tom at Delmhorst for coming in and setting some of these questions straight for us. Thanks again, Tom. Appreciate the time.
My pleasure, Chuck. Thank you.
As always, thanks to C&R Magazine for distribution of the series. And of course, thank you for learning with rtilearning.com. And thanks to Delmhorst and Dom. Here we go. Where did Dom come from? Anything else you think about, Tom, for a second on these meters? That just did do it. I just wanted to pause for a second. So if you don't have anything else to add, we can cut that out too. So as always, thanks to C&R Magazine for distribution of the species. There's a blooper for us. Yeah. Distribution of the species. All right, here we go again.